I mentioned in my opening remarks that this piece was premiered in Baltimore 8 days ago.
Right.
And you've played it again since then, haven't you?
We played it Thursday night or Wednesday night in Boston. So this is the third performance of this piece.
Third. So you wanted to get it warm for the Ridgewood audience here.
Exactly.
And I thought everybody would be interested in knowing, and I would too, what the impetus for the composition of this piece was and how it related to you.
So fortunately, there's an organization called Music Accord, and they are essentially a consortium of presenters. And every year they pool together some money to allow a performer or an ensemble to commission a new work of music, essentially. So I think they emailed me about a year and a half ago, and they said, congratulations, we've selected you. Who are your top picks for composers? So I compiled a list of sort of young composers, middle of their career composers, and as a few outliers, people like Frederic Rzewski, who to me was kind of an impossible person to get. He's turning 80 in I think just under a month. I think his music is incredible, and I just assumed that he would say no. He would say, oh, my waiting list is 5 years long, sorry, I can't do it for you. But fortunately, we reached out to him and he said, sure, okay, maybe I'll come to a concert of yours, I'll listen and see what I think, and then we'll go from there.
And so he did come to hear you play?
He did, yes. I played a concert in New York, and he attended, and we went out to eat afterward, and he's...
What did you have?
I don't remember what I ate, but I remember there was a lot of wine. But after that performance, he commented. He said, yes, I would love to write a piece for you. I was struck in particular by the resonance in the sonority of your lower register, the sort of the G-string range of this piece. Those in the pizzicato I thought were unusual for a violinist. Usually, violin is such a small instrument that whenever I try and pizzicato or violinists try to pizz, it's usually a very dinky sound. And so I think he was excited by this idea that maybe there could be more resonance to a pizz.
And they sent me a draft recording of this from a rehearsal, and I listened, and I know the answer to this question, but in what ways did his admiration for your lower register and your pizzicato figure into this piece?
Well, you'll hear the very opening of the work for the first, essentially, 4 pages of the piece. It calls to be played entirely, exclusively on the G string. So he really wants a kind of more rugged, kind of grittier sound, I think. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And,
he is, I think of him as a piano-centric composer because he is himself a remarkable pianist. And I think we spoke the other day, and he was saying that he hadn't really written any solo violin music before. Do you find it gracious to play, or do you find it difficult to play?
Surprisingly idiomatic. The technical demands are not excessive, nor are they too minimal. It's sort of right in that sweet spot where it's just demanding enough to make you practice it really to the nth degree, but it's not impossible.
Now, another point to be made about this piece, and it's actually in your program books, many of his pieces have been inspired over the last 50 years by rather simple folk songs and protest songs and songs of the civil rights movements. And this piece is no exception. There are 2 main songs that I thought it would be useful for you to hear them, at least a smattering of them, so that you would know what they are. The first one, and you'll hear it a lot in the first movement, it's called Heroes, Greek for heroes. And it was composed and sung a lot by people who were struggling against the right-wing dictatorship, the junta, in the 1960s and the early 1970s in Greece. And the words to the first verse are, heroes, impregnable mountains, heroes with 12 lives, castles of Olympus and ghosts of Parnassus, heroes among the ruins. Would you maybe comment on certain ways in which that figure appears in this piece, is woven into the fabric of this piece?
I could play just like, well, for instance, just that 3-note falling. He has this way of taking little ideas and using them over and over and over again in tiny ways. So I'll just play a little bit of my counterpoint, and then you'll, maybe not even with Ben, just to hear. So.
Yeah, you can hear it. So that gives you something to listen for. And in the second and third movements, it's based almost entirely on Freedom is a Constant Struggle, which was a civil rights anthem sung particularly by a folk singer named Barbara Dane back in the 1960s. And she recorded it with an African-American singing group called the Chambers Brothers, and here is a smattering of it.
They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle.
They're kind of a spiritual, and I'll let Ben comment on.
The second movement starts with just a very simple version of that. And then it's a sort of theme and variations based on that, a
Right.
loose theme and variations.
How wonderful we get to hear that twice. And the third movement is also based largely on that. It's sort of an elegiac memory of it.
Yes.
And the last movement has a lot of anger at the beginning, and then it comes full circle. It really, like Beethoven or something, it's cyclical. It comes back to the very beginning of the first movement. Anyway, enough said. I thought it would be fun for people to know a bit about how it came to be. And so as soon as I get back, you can play it.